15 past, the State Department's envoy to Guantanamo Bay is leaving that job. Clifford Sloan, he's the one responsible for dealing with the transfer of detainees, including the 4 sent back to Afghanistan just a few days ago. Ambassador John Bolton, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Fox News contributor with me now, and good morning to you and a Merry Christmas. He ran the prison for 18 months. But his big duty was the transfer of detainees, which, as you know, is the president's first priority. What does this do to the effort to close Gitmo, do you think?
Well, the timing on this is very strange. It's always possible, of course, he's actually resigning for the stated reason, namely that he wanted to spend 18 months and that time is over. But, you know, the administration has been making extra efforts. You mentioned the 4 sent back to Afghanistan, 5 sent to Uruguay. I mean, you might as well take all 9 and send them straight to al-Qaeda global headquarters. I think the president remains committed to closing Gitmo. The press is filled with speculation that Chuck Hagel, the outgoing Secretary of Defense, was resisting. We've got a new Secretary of Defense nominated. He'll have a confirmation hearing in January. That could be very interesting.
Right. Plus, you got a new Cuba policy. I mean, do you think that's involved in this and somehow? About closing Gitmo and normalizing relations?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, remember, Gitmo is not just the prisoner camp that we've had there since 9/11, but the fact is, for the left in Latin America and the United States, the very existence of the naval base at Guantanamo Bay, coming after the Spanish-American War, has been used as a symbol of Yankee imperialism and so on and so forth. So given the president's ideological predilections, I would wonder if maybe his real strategy is close the prisoner detention facility, normalize relations with the Castro regime, and give him back the whole Guantanamo Bay territory.
Wow, that would be something else. Back to the transfer over the weekend. These 4 who went back to Afghanistan, from what I understand, there are no restrictions on their movements. Now, why would that be?
Well, I think they're just desperate to get people out. You know, the same point applies to the 5 sent to Uruguay. The president of Uruguay said they can come and go from his country as they please. Well, I tell you, once they go, they're not coming back. And the notion that somehow these 9 are low-hanging fruit, the last couple hundred people at Gitmo, by definition, were the hardcore of the hardcore. I think it's almost inevitable you're going to have a very high rate of these people returning to the battlefield against the United States. I just think this policy is directly contrary to our national security, and it's one reason why I think the nominee for Secretary of Defense is going to have to answer for this policy.
Ash Carter, right? Is that right, job one for him?
Well, I think if I were in the Senate Armed Services Committee, now chaired by John McCain in the new Congress, I'd put that right at the top of questions. You know, Carter is billed as somebody who would stand up to the White House. Let's find out.
I think you're going to see a steady stream and dribble of detainees leaving, perhaps every week. I mean, that's been the pattern right now. You have 132 left, of which 64 have been approved already for transfer. That gets you down to about half.
No, I think they're determined to move people out. I think that the circumstances and the risks that these people pose to American troops, American citizens all around the world, just being given very short shrift. That was the hang-up with Hagel. He was not about to sign off on a lot of these people, apparently, and that may be one of the reasons Hagel's soon to become a former Secretary of Defense.
John Kerry was quoted as saying, "I'm convinced there's a finish line in sight now because of the strides we made in 2014. That was in direct reaction to the potential for closing it, Ambassador.
Sure. If you don't care about the impact on national security, you could let them all go tomorrow. I mean, we know from statistics already that we have a very high recidivism rate of the detainees that have been released already who were less dangerous than the ones who are still there. So I think this is something, we need to get this back into the national debate, and I suspect that Ash Carter's confirmation hearing in January will help do that.
If we reach that finish line, maybe it's not one we want to reach, and we're going to know that in time. Thank you, sir. John Bolton from Washington.
Thanks, Bill. Merry Christmas.
You too.